Okay, we are now live with the March 24th edition of Prehistory, a Traveler's Guide podcast. I am your host, Greg Nunneman, and on my panel today, I have my good buddy, Samuel J. Eiler. Say hello.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you again.
And returning after a month-long hiatus since our Dr. Thomas Carr interview back in February, Geek Island's own Sean Markey. Say hello to the audience, Sean.
Hey, guys. Sorry I've been away so long, but looking to fix that now, so here we go.
And lastly, we have the editor of Prehistoric Times, Mr. Mike Frederickson, the guy who recommended our choice of guest today.
Hi, Jen. I hope you're feeling 100% better than you did last Saturday.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you for postponing.
yeah, you're welcome, Jen. I have to work around a lot of crazy folks as a schedule.
Yeah.
And anyhow, now for our guest of honor today, we're introducing yet another Paleoartist on the program. She's from the Carter County Museum in Montana. She's a mixture of things: paleo art, graphic design, and taxidermy. Her name is Jennifer Hall from Hell Creek Studio. Welcome to the program, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
I am honored. I always love having Paleoartists on. We had a wonderful time with artists Tyler Keel and Chris DiPiazza this past Monday. It was a wonderful time.
Fantastic.
Yep, so I just find Paleoartists can be just as engaging to talk with as the paleontologists I've had on the program, including the aforementioned Dr. Carr.
Yes, I know Thomas well. He's a great guy.
So let me hold on a second here. I'll pull out the my first question to kickstart things is: what age did you get interested in dinosaurs and paleontology, and what inspired you to want to depict them in paleo art and so forth?
Well, I was a little late to the game. I am not one of those people that grew up loving dinosaurs. I didn't grow up hating dinosaurs either. I just kind of wasn't. They weren't on my radar. I went to the University of Pennsylvania as an undergrad, and I majored in art, but I picked up a minor in geology. I had some elective courses, and I just kept racking up the geology credits until I realized I was pretty close to a minor. And during that time, I just became very interested in thinking about what extinct life looked like, what the Earth would have looked like at different times in the past, and I ended up getting really into illustrating my labs, and ended up taking some classes with Peter Dodson, among some other paleontologists in the field, and I basically asked him if I could illustrate some of his papers to practice. So that's kind of how I got into it. I was in college by the time that I kind of got interested in scientific illustration.
That's a pretty late bloomer, I would say. And if I could make a follow-up question is, what was the very first paleo art illustration that you did?
Well, like I said, I was illustrating my labs. I took a class in invertebrate paleontology, and so I was doing a lot of, extra illustration just because it was enjoyable. Published, that would probably be, I did an illustration of a Protoceratops, I think it was, for Peter Dodson for a Chinese journal, and that was it was for just a simple figure for a skull illustration, so that would probably be the first one.
Not a bad, kind of an odd choice to start with. Some people might start with, Tyrannosaurus Rex or some of the bigger names, but starting with a dinosaur that was discovered by Roy Chapman Andrews so long ago, it's a good start.
Yeah, well, Peter's a ceratopsian guy, so it was a lot of Triceratops and Protoceratops and things like that in the beginning.
I have.
Jen, you do that in lieu of taking a final? Am I right on that?
Yes. How did you know?
We have our ways of finding out things.
Aha. Well, I did write a paper, but I also illustrated a paper to supplement.
Cool.
Speaking of Peter Dodson, I actually happen to have his book he wrote in the 1990s about ceratopsians. And one of my first friends I made in the paleontology field is a ceratopsian expert from Cleveland, Dr. Michael Ryan, who's the lead curator of paleontology at the Cleveland Museum.
Yeah, I don't think I know him, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool ceratopsian guys out there. It's always fun to kind of watch them get into it.
Yeah, one of these days I'll try to get my buddy Dr. Ryan on here for a ceratopsian discussion, or Darren Tank, who's he's a preparator up at Canada, who's also a ceratopsian expert, from what I know. So anyhow, Mike, you want to have a go at it for a little bit?
Yeah, well, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Dreadnoughtus.
Yeah.
So how did it come about that you were commissioned to illustrate that dinosaur, and how much leeway did they give you, or how much were they looking over your shoulder, you know, from Drexel and stuff while you were doing it? And I want to tell you one other thing. You've been in my magazine, believe it or not, because your art of Dreadnoughtus was in the magazine, but I never saw your name on it. And we were talking about that earlier, that we don't think you got as much credit as, obviously you deserve all the credit, but we don't think your name was on it.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Those are all really good questions. So I'll start with, I met Ken Lacavera, I think it was the year after I graduated from Penn, but I was still going to the weekly journal clubs and the meetings. They used to have speakers come every Friday after journal club. And so I just, you know, I enjoyed doing that, and I managed to get my Fridays off. At the time, I was a pastry artist, so I was really, my paleo art was very part-time. That was kind of something I was doing when I got home from work. And so I met Ken at one of those Friday meetings, and we hit it off, and we kind of just chatted. We had a lot of same interests, ideas, and so he invited me to come out and to, he's got the fossil site in New Jersey, and I had been out there a few times, and so he said, well, come out and dig with us. So I went out every once in a while, and he said one day while we were out there that he had this project that was coming up, and he was looking to have kind of a real fleshed out illustration, and he had seen some of my previous work and was interested in having me do something. So he commissioned me to do that. I worked on it for several months. There were a lot of co-authors on that paper, so I was getting a lot of feedback. So yeah, there were a lot of tweaks that happened along the way, and it definitely it changed. I definitely had I had it in a completely different perspective in the beginning, but they really needed to see the whole animal, and they needed to see it in kind of a way that showed off as much of it as possible. So so there was a lot of back and forth, and then I didn't really expect it to kind of be as big, well, to be as big as it was. I didn't really expect it to kind of be in all the newspapers or anything like that, and I'm not sure Ken did either. I think this was just a project that we were both having a lot of fun with, working on this illustration, and I know that, I mean, I think that, you know, when you have a discovery like that, he knew it was going to be big. I just, you know, it was on the nightly news and everything. It took me by surprise. I shouldn't speak for Ken.
Yeah, I was going to say it was even on TV, as you just said, too, yeah. Yeah,
that was cool. So, there was another illustrator who had done another illustration, and the names from Carnegie. And so the names got mixed up in the press release, and so his name actually got put on my illustration. But at the end of the day, it was really cool to have the illustration everywhere. My family was really excited, and it's, you know, it's a hard act to follow in your own career. Yeah, right.
And I've seen different versions too. Like some have a background and some don't and stuff too. I don't know what that was all about, but
yeah, I gave them some options. I sent kind of a package of different ways to present the animal. Personally, I prefer it without the background. I think it just kind of helps Dreadnoughtus shine.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you know, I think that they wanted to have some options, and so I provided that.
Right. Yeah, I think. I don't want to put any words in Sean's mouth, but he wanted to ask you a question about the validity of Dreadnoughtus. Don't you, Sean?
Oh, well, yeah, well, not the validity, but I suppose just because that Dreadnoughtus image that you did, it was like probably the widest circulated piece of Paleoart that year, so congrats on that. But what I found, like, a lot of the news places that took it up were quite sensationalist, and kind of like saying that it was the biggest dinosaur ever, which, as far as we can tell, isn't really true. So I suppose for you as the artist, how would that make you feel, having your art associated with, say, bad information? And is there anything you could kind of do about that, or do you just have to kind of let it slide?
Well, I think there was some sensationalism in that people, I mean, at the time it was my impression that that was the largest sauropod that had been found. I think that there was that David Attenborough one that was found the next year, which I've heard some discussion about that being larger. I think that question probably would be better targeted to Ken, because honestly, it was my understanding at the time, and still is my understanding, that at the time of its release, it was the biggest one. Whatever happens, whatever comes to light after a discovery like that, if it turns out, no, we were wrong, I think, I wouldn't call it bad information. I would just call it the best information we had at the time.
Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. So, yeah, sorry about that. Maybe I got my wires crossed there. Cool. Anybody else got a... Who's up next?
Do you want me to ask one of my questions?
Sure.
All right. A second. What do you see as the future of Paleoart?
The future of Paleoart?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. I think that because of the internet, there's a lot of people getting in the game, which is really nice to see. There's a lot of different ideas happening. I think that the technology is really going to allow us to experiment a lot more, come up with illustrations that are far more stylized or far more photorealistic. There's some great paleoartists doing a lot of really stunning work as far as creating things that are convincing and intuitive in appearance. So the future of paleoart, I hope, is that it continues to grow, and that we continue to build a community of people that are kind of exchanging ideas visually. I think paleoartists are kind of, many are the unsung heroes of paleontology, because it's really where the communication with the general public about this field is. And if we're going to continue to funnel funding into paleontology and STEM education, the artists are going to be part of convincing the public that that's worth funding.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Should I ask another one of my questions, or let somebody else go first?
Go ahead, Sam.
All right. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of questions here. Greg kind of beat me to most of the good ones. My second question is, have you ever considered or been interested in making ceramic dinosaurs?
That's a cool idea. I haven't done ceramics in a really long time. Probably not since I was in high school. I took a ceramics class when I was in high school. It's not really something that was offered where I went to art school. I went to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. I did a lot of foundry while I was there, but that was really kind of pre-science illustration. That's when I was still pretty deep into the fine art thing. So I love the idea. I would absolutely consider it. Ceramics have a very unique look, so I think that would be a very fun thing to pursue.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we were mentioning paleoart and scientific communication. I had a question about that specifically. Is how have you used paleoart and scientific illustration and marketing to either communicate science or to promote museums or exhibits? And as a follow-up, how have you used graphic design to promote paleoart and science overall?
Oh, okay, that was a mouthful. So how do I use paleoart to kind of promote the museum I work for and the field generally? Was that the first part of that question?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's here. The first question's here in the sidebar.
Yeah, promote a museum or an exhibit. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to kind of use depictions of extinct life. One is educational and scientific. So for Dreadnoughtus, or those figures that I talked about earlier for Peter, There's a lot of scientific information that gets communicated there. And then the other thing that you can do with Paleoart is you can kind of, like I was saying, use it to get the public excited about the field for funding purposes, to get more people involved, especially to get more young women involved in the field. So really, when I do my graphic design, either for t-shirts, posters, logos, anything like that, it really is to get people excited about something that maybe they don't encounter in their everyday lives, but is really cool, and you can incorporate it into your everyday life, either by having artwork on the wall, by wearing a t-shirt that kind of says, you're walking around with a t-shirt with a cool graphic design of a dinosaur on it, and that says, I'm passionate about this, I'm passionate about the museum that's on this design. And so that's one way. And in exhibit work, definitely I try to have a lot of fun with it. Exhibits and museums are kind of moving out of this old idea that they're quiet, antiquated spaces, and more into this kind of fun, engaging thing. So when I do exhibit work, I really try to kind of put a little bit of humor into it, whether it's, if I'm doing the moon in our mural out here, putting a little triceratops instead of a man in the moon, really trying to kind of get people to smile and be engaged with the exhibits.
You're my kind of girl, putting humor into everything. I love your posters that you show online. You know what they remind me of is kind of like the old, like the blues concerts or like a boxing match type posters they used to have back in the day.
Yeah, I love that idea.
I would frame those and put those in my house. Those are really cool.
Yeah, I really enjoy doing the poster work. They sell well here in our museum gift shop, so that's nice. We get some good revenue and some educational value. I've got one behind me here for the Medicine Rocks. Yeah, I'm very inspired by kind of retro wrestling posters. Is not one I've heard. I like that, but kind of the old WPA posters and kind of vintage beer labels and stuff like that. So kind of just looking at old kind of gritty designs that that artists were doing when they had their hands more in it, and then kind of bringing that into the new age with these other ideas.
No, they're really nice. We saw the blues guitarist, famous man B.B. King here before he passed away recently, and he was selling posters, out in the lobby there that are similar to that old form that I think are similar to your art. I don't know.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a huge compliment. Yeah, I think that what you decide to hang on your walls and look at every day is really, really formative in identity. So I'm really honored that people put my artwork on their walls or wear it or make it part of their everyday life.
Well, it wasn't really a question, so maybe I'll ask a question if no one minds. I know you were in Philadelphia, and that's where you met Bob and Tess, and they used to be a really big part of my magazine. They actually sent me some artwork for this upcoming issue, and I hadn't heard from them in a while. But would you tell us how you got to meet them and what you did with them? I know they worked with some sculptors right there, I guess right there in their studio before and stuff too, but that was kind of a long thing, but just how that came about, I guess.
Bob and Tess really are the reason that I got super into this. They really kind of, I don't want to say they took a chance on me, but they gave me a huge opportunity in kind of bringing me into some of the projects that they were working on when I met them. I graduated from UPenn in 2010, and it was that year that Peter kind of helping me get started in my career and kind of helping me turn something that at that point was kind of a free time hobby into a profession. He introduced me to Bob and Tess, and we got along like peas and carrots. And they had me over a lot, and we talked a lot about different ideas, and I got to hear a lot about their history with Paleoart and working at the Smithsonian, the old dinosaur hall, and they kind of got me involved. One of the first projects I worked on for them, the Marco Island Historical Society has a museum, and they were putting some new extinct mammals into that mural. So they had me do a couple of those. The big one that I worked on was Dinosaur National Monument. They got the bid to do the new mural when that was being renovated a few years. Well, no, it feels like a few years ago, but I guess it's a few more now. But they kind of got me in on that project, so I got, and you know, they gave me a lot of animals to do, so that was really exciting. Some things were very small, and you kind of, when you go to the museum, I actually went for the first time a couple years ago during SVP, but you know, you got to get real close to see the frogs or the snails. But I also did some camptosaurs and some pterosaurs, and you know, things like terrapins, and so I got a good, well-rounded species experience working on that project with them. And yeah, I haven't seen them in a few years because I haven't been back to Philly in a few years, but they're great.
Did we say their last name, Bob Walters and Tess Kissinger? I think we kept calling them by their first name only.
Yeah.
People know what we're talking about.
Yep, Bob and Tess.
Yep, right. Good. That really kind of helped propel your occupation as your work, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, they were instrumental in helping me get my foot in the door of paleontology, and you know, I think the first SVP I went to was with them as part of Walters and Kissinger, and that was Vegas. That was my first SVP, and that was a good time.
Oh,
great time.
Rough location, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
You know, they're great. I owe them a lot.
Yeah.
So, if you mind, just because you said foot in the door, just kind of made me think that speaking of getting people in the door, you've been doing some great work for the Carter County Museum as you roll in the marketing comms. In fact, I was reading last year was the record year for attendances, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, we are really killing it out here. I am really proud to work for this museum. We are a very small town, about population 350 people. So, and we're in the boonies, but we're very scientifically significant in that we are in the middle of the Hell Creek, and a lot of big-name paleontologists come through here every summer. And so we, 6 years ago now, started the Dino Shindig. Nathan Carroll, our curator, started it when he was a grad student at MSU, and he brought a bunch of friends out. I didn't come on board until year two. But we've just been building this museum up and up with the Shindig, taking advantage of having those scientists in the area and trying to share their knowledge with the local community, with each other, and to really just kind of have a good celebration about something that we're all passionate about.
Cool. Have you any? Can you give us any clues about what surprise you might have in store for this year's Shindig?
Yeah. So right now I'm reaching out to people. We're going to have a lot of new names. We've got some. We do have some returning people, but we're also trying to get some fresh young faces into the lineup. Who can I say is coming now? Actually, this is very appropriate. Gary Stabb has confirmed that he'll be giving a talk about Paleoart, and we've never had a Paleoart talk before. So I'm really excited about that. Usually I'm running around making sure that everything's going off without a hitch the day of the Shindig, but that is something that I'm going to definitely have somebody fill in for me for that 20 minutes so I can go see his talk. I'm really excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just interviewed Tyler Keeler, who does similar work as Gary over in Chicago.
Oh, no kidding.
So he'd be good too. He's done some beautiful full-scale models and stuff. Yeah.
Sorry about that noise. That's going to switch off in a second. Yeah, we're very excited. You know, definitely having me come on board. We've been doing a lot more with Paleoart and incorporating that into programming. Of course, we do still have things like Fish and Wildlife come out and talk to the kids about bats. We do a bat walk. That's always very exciting, and we're hoping to continue that again this year. And then we've got a taxidermist coming out with a group, and they're hoping to do a butterfly pinning class. So that'll be a little bit of a new thing. And as we're kind of looking at insects more and more here at the museum, that's going to be very educationally appropriate. So we're pretty excited to have some old hits and then some returning faces, but also some new faces and some new ideas and new programming. So it should be a very good year. I think it'll be the best. Every year's the best one yet. I don't think this is going to be an exception.
Outstanding. That's great to hear. It's great to hear that that sciences in general, there seems to be more and more people getting interested. So delighted for you, and congrats again on your success.
Well, thank you. It's a team effort out here. Our director, Saber Moore, has done a lot to kind of move the museum forward, move the programming forward, and really put us on the map. So we've got a really strong team.
Would you guys, like me to ask my next question?
Go for it, Samuel.
All right. This is not meant to be a creationist question, but do you believe, as some people do, that ancient depictions of dragons and other monsters are really just crude and inaccurate attempts made by ancient people to try to depict prehistoric animals after stumbling upon their fossilized remains?
That's an interesting one. I honestly don't know. The thought has occurred to me, and I just haven't pursued that line of inquiry. It seems reasonable. I think that, it's probably not something I know enough about to speak about, but I bet there's a paleontologist out there that knows the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't. But you tell me when you find out, because it's a good one.
Me personally, I don't really preach it. I don't really preach it, but I don't disbelieve it either. I think it's possible.
Yeah. Well, I think that humans we've always been curious creatures, and when we come across something that is new and interesting, there's always a lot of attempts to explain it, and it's part of the beauty of the scientific quest.
Greg, is there anything you would like to add to that?
Well, on the whole, ancient people's, connections with fossils, there's actually been some talk that paleontology actually has been around a lot longer than just the 19th century. There was an article I found that states even as far back as ancient Greece or Rome, there were people trying to do early versions of paleontology. I don't know the exact, article in question, but I would be happy to share it, post-show if I ever find it, because it's pretty interesting.
That does sound interesting.
And,
yeah, I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. So, and also the whole thing about dragons. It's often been said almost every culture in the world, has serpentine, reptilian, dragon-like, creatures in their cultures, even if they've never seen one another or spoken with one another, but yet they all seem to independently have similar sets of monsters. There was a book I found called Deadly Powers that actually has a pretty good explanation for why, creatures like dragons and so forth look the way they do. And it stems back to ancient times, the ancestors of humankind. They had several types of predators. You had predators from the sky, eagles and hawks. You had predators on the ground like big cats. And in the water you had crocodiles and snakes. And then over time, alarm calls, as they became more and more sophisticated, the three creatures eventually became blended into something that was an amalgamation of all these different creatures.
Well, I hope you do share that, because that's not something I'm familiar with. I'm a huge X-Files fan, so certainly I think that all of this is relevant to that.
What did you make of the last season that they brought out a little while ago?
Oh, that's I think they just wrapped it up. I'm pretty hardcore X-Files. I had to stop watching after the first episode because it just didn't really have any of it. It reminded me of like an episode of 24. it was just a completely different beast, and I'm not ready.
Yeah, no, it wasn't very good. No.
So I only saw the first episode. I heard they got better. I'm just kind of so heartbroken about it that I love Mulder and Scully. I love those two actors. I can't. I'm not ready to watch it.
Was that the episode with the lizard man?
The what?
There was like an episode with a lizard man. Was that the first one?
No, the first one, they brought the cigarette smoking man back. Spoiler alert. And, we saw him explode. I'm sorry.
Do they still have the same theme song that they have in all the other series?
Yeah.
I love that theme song. It's so spooky and eerie.
Yeah, Mark Snow, man. He knows how to conduct.
Okay, here I think I'll jump in here. Question number 12 that asks about the Carter County Museum is what eventually led you to currently working at the Carter County Museum, choosing to work in marketing, exhibit design, graphic design, and paleontological field work?
Yeah. So the beautiful thing about my job is I get to do a little bit of everything. I get to do artwork. I get to do field work. I get to talk to the scientists. I get to do exhibit work. I get to help fundraise. I get a little bit of everything. I'm currently a graduate student in the Museum Studies program at Johns Hopkins, which is part online, part internship / on-site seminar. I'll be graduating in December. So I've gotten to have a really well-rounded experience in museum education through this job that's helped, the degree and the job have kind of informed each other, and I like I said, I get to do a little bit of everything. What got me into this, it was kind of an organic progression. I met Nathan Carroll, as I mentioned earlier, our curator at the Los Angeles SVP, and he was passing out flyers for the second annual Dino Shindig, and I thought that sounded very different. I was born in Washington, D.C., I lived in Philadelphia for 10 years. Before I moved here to Montana, I was in Los Angeles for a few years. So I've always been a big city girl, and kind of the idea of going out and doing field work in the middle of nowhere and hanging out in the country just sounded really different and exciting. So he said, well, come out. We'll give you a small grant to work on the exhibits, and you can just kind of hang out and learn about our museum and our community and contribute for the summer. So I did. I was here for about 3 months for the second annual Dino Shindig, and that was a blast, obviously life-changing. And even though I moved to Los Angeles, I kept coming out every summer. Then a few years ago, they opened up this position, the Marketing and Communications Coordinator position, and I filled it nicely. My experience and my expertise really fit the job well, and somebody else moved out of the position, so I moved in, and I moved here permanently last March so that I could really devote my time and energy to this museum.
That's very, very awesome. That sounds a lot like our mutual friend Ashley Hall. She's been around all over the place before ending up at the Cleveland Museum.
Yeah, I heard you were going to talk to Ashley, or you already did.
We already did on the 3rd.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she's a great science educator. She's really good at outreach. She's got the in marketing and communications, there has to be a lot of social media outreach, which I think she's doing it really well, and I'm not great about being on social media very much because I've always got my hands in something else here at the physical museum, and so I really like what she's doing and what a lot of women are doing for science communication online.
Yeah.
No relation, right, Jen?
No, we get that a lot though.
Yeah, I made a little joke about that during Ashley's interview. So.
Oh, funny. Yeah, we get that a lot, but no, just a common last name.
So yeah, I just think the work that Ashley does at the museum in terms of promoting exhibits and stuff like that, it's just absolutely amazing. Just put it lightly.
Yeah, Yeah, she's and she's got a real strong voice. I think that when you are doing science education and science communication, especially on behalf of an institution, it's important to have a very kind of definite voice, which she has, and she's got kind of the dual thing going on where she's educating, she's passing along scientific information, but she's also promoting her institution, which is great.
Yeah, and I can say I've been a proud member of the Cleveland Museum now since last year, and I do a lot of little promotion for the museum without being officially asked to do so. And I attend their annual Dino Fest every November. There's been a lot of very cool guests and artists that have been speakers there.
Yeah, no, they really have some cool stuff going on, and a lot of it, most of it, I know about through her.
Yeah, currently they have an awesome exhibit called Pterosaurs Flight in the Age of Dinosaurs, co-sponsored by the American Museum of Natural History, and also co-curated by Dr. Mark Norrell, who's giving a talk at the museum in May.
Cool, yeah. Both her and Lee have posted about that, and I think I follow them and the museum on Twitter, so yeah, the pterosaur exhibit is cool, and we're pretty into our curator. His graduate work was studying pterosaurs, so and that was the first actually. It was as a Darkit exhibit that I worked on when I first came here. That would have been 2014, I guess, somewhere around there.
There are so many awesome museum exhibits that I'm missing out on. I don't travel nearly as much as I should, so I miss out on a lot of this stuff.
Well, museums are a good reason to travel.
Yeah.
How do you think I think, Sam? I live on an island.
Yep, he's Irish.
Oh, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought he was from Alabama.
That's the first. I've never been told that before.
Yeah, me and Sam are from Ohio.
The
pterosaur exhibit was here in San Francisco, and I got to go see it. It was really a lot of fun. Very nicely done.
The best museum that I've ever been to so far is the Field Museum in Chicago. I love that place.
Yeah, they just did a new logo, which is being met with mixed reviews. But that's a fantastic museum. There's a lot going on there. Sue is getting her own room now, or
yep.
Sorry, I'm not specific with Sue. Yeah, Sue's moving, and then they're getting that new sauropod in that we had mentioned, Titanosaur.
Right. Patago Titan is what it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to go to the Field Museum in 2016, and let me just say, that was quite an amazing experience, seeing Sue up close and in person. Absolutely. Yeah. She has, that Tyrannosaur has had quite a life story to put, like, with the legal battles, and, Pete Larson, being hauled off to prison, and then the auction, of course.
Yeah, it's got a very dramatic past.
When I was at the field, they were still digging the skull out of the Matrix, but they had it in the window there in the little lab, and you could watch them do it and stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's vintage.
Yeah, it was a while back. I was a baby.
Me personally, I've actually been to the Field Museum 3 times, and aside from Sue, one of the most interesting exhibits that I found there apart from Sue was the Savo man-eaters, those 2 stuffed lions. You ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah. The Ghost of the Darkness?
Yeah, those.
I'm not familiar.
Well, if I may, this is a story that I'm actually quite familiar with. There was, at the turn of the 19th century, there was a project to build a railway across the River Savo in Africa. And the project was in the late 1800s. The lead project engineer, Lieutenant Colonel John Patterson, had to stop 2 rogue lions that were going off, killing and eating the railway workers over a stretch of several months. And that was made into the film The Ghost of the Darkness, starring Val Kilmer and Michael Douglas in the late 90s.
Yeah, they're both. You'd love it. They're both stuffed. Sorry for that word, but stuffed in the museum. You probably have a better word than that for it. But
taxidermists, if there are any listening, will probably be shuddering. But with the term that we use is mounted. I don't.
There you go. Yeah, no, I've heard that too. Yeah. But all I was going to say was, it's surprising how small they are. You would think they'd be these huge, because they're killing men, but they're really not that big.
And they don't. And they don't have any manes either, even though.
And they don't have any manes. Yeah.
Is that because of age, or are they female lions? Are they lionesses?
Sure. They were both males. It's a trait of the lions found in that region of Kenya.
Yeah. I thought they were. Yeah.
Fascinating.
It's actually pretty interesting.
Look up that movie. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
Well, if it's got Val Kilmer, it's got to be.
There you go.
Yeah, he plays the project leader, Colonel Patterson.
And
cool! I will check that out.
The Ghost and the Darkness.
Ghost in the Darkness.
Jenn, I suppose we've mentioned a few museums. I guess from your artistic perspective, are there any, other than obviously your own Carter County, but are there any museums that you visited that you thought were really impressive from an artistic perspective?
Oh yeah, I mean I'm getting a degree in it. I love museums. I think that if you want to talk about the future of paleo art and the future of science communication, I think museums are going to have a huge role, an increasing role as we go forward in providing a well-rounded educational experience and really informing how we teach future generations and how we encourage existing generations to become lifelong learners. I love museums of all kinds. I was a fine artist, continue to do fine art, in addition to a scientific illustrator. So I really like going to, I'm really into modern art. I like contemporary art. LACMA in Los Angeles. I love that museum. I went a few times when I lived there, and it never got old. I saw the Guillermo del Toro exhibit there, which was really cool. And then I grew up in D.C. So, of course, the Smithsonian, that rotunda with Henry the Elephant, that's kind of a formative institution for me. I feel like I'm, worshiping at the altar whenever I go into the Smithsonian's Natural History Museum. And I'm just trying, I really should champion some small museums too. I mean, we have the Dino Trail here in Montana, which is a series. MOR is definitely the largest institution on that road, but we're a member of the Dino Trail, which is a series of museums that you can tour. It's a passport-style store, so you get your passport, and for every museum you go to, you get your passport stamped from that museum. So there's a lot of museums on the Dino Trail, and I encourage people to look it up if you are ever in Montana and want to kind of do an interesting driving tour. The Dino Trail is a good one. And then, I think, again, as far as small museums go, in Miles City, about 2 hours from here, there's the Range Riders Museum. That one's pretty massive and interesting and has a lot of interesting history in it. And then in the same city is the Waterworks Museum, which I have yet to go to, but it's basically they took the old waterworks, and then where each kind of pool is an art gallery. So I've tried to go. They were closed when I tried to go, but that's on my list. My kind of like want to, I got to check that one off.
Are you very close to the Museum of the Rockies, Jenn?
Yes, the Carter County Museum and the Museum of the Rockies are actually sister museums.
Okay.
And
I was wondering about that, yeah.
Yeah, we have a very close bond with them. We have John Scannella was one of our speakers at the last shindig. He's their new curate, knew it now. I guess it's been over a year. And then we're hoping to get him back for this shindig as well. And they come out and do field work in Carter County. And I was up in Glendive with them doing some field work for about a week last year. And yeah, MOR is great. I actually was just there a few weeks ago visiting.
You have one of the most famous paleo artists in the world living in your state, and that's Doug Henderson.
He's so good.
Could you ever get him involved, do you think?
That's a great idea. Yeah, I'll look
I have
into
his address. I have his address if you want.
Yeah,
Mike,
I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've ever had any interactions with him, but I love his work. I love.
Who does it? Yeah.
It's so atmosphere. I mean, I really I like paleoartists that have a very stylized look, and everybody does. William Stout is another one.
Yeah.
I like seeing him at SVP. He's always got a nice dry sense of humor.
He travels everywhere. I don't think he's ever home.
Yeah. He's a cool dude, and I love his style, and I love that he does other kinds of art. He had a book a few years ago where he did portraits of musicians. So yeah, there's so many cool, talented people in this field. I love it.
I know. I was just thinking, but Doug is so close to you. You should maybe try to reach out.
I will look into it. I actually didn't realize that he was in Montana, so I'll have to. But yeah, and it makes perfect sense. He's got this kind of like natural, atmospheric, sketchy. Like he's clearly going out and working from the landscape. So
he does. He posts a lot of it on Facebook. Just little drawings of around where he lives. It's really nice little landscape sketches.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Yeah, well, you were in LA, so is that when you started to work on Mankind: The Story of Us?
No, I was actually in Philadelphia when I did that, and that was kind of so I did that with Bob and Tess. That was a project that they kind of got me in on, and I only really did that one illustration, but I'm really proud of it because I got to work on Lucy for the History Channel. That was awesome.
I was going to say, it's Lucy. I was going to tell you to say that.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want that on their resume? And I loved kind of putting that. I like working on human faces. I was a caricature artist at Six Flags for a couple of years when I lived in Philadelphia, and so and definitely when I went to PAFA, there was a huge emphasis on the human form. So kind of getting to marry my love of paleoart and paleontology with my love of fine art and working from the figure and doing kind of something classical. That was awesome, and I was so grateful that Bob and Tess had me do that illustration.
Absolutely, that's great. Well, if that wasn't from LA, how about M. Night Shyamalan? What did you do for him, and was that from when you lived in LA?
When did I do work for him?
Yeah. And what did you do?
I didn't do anything. I have a piece in his collection that was given to him as a gift.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Somebody that worked for him commissioned me. So that's the time I got to meet him once, and seems like a really chill guy. And I love his movies. I like Signs. That's kind of, it makes sense. I like X-Files. I like all that aliens.
I saw his name on your resume. What did you illustrate for him?
She just commissioned me to do a crow, or a raven, rather. That was. Sorry.
Nevermore.
Yeah. It was a Christmas gift that the employee was giving him.
Very nice.
I'm surprised you saw that. I actually didn't realize I had that on my resume.
It's my job, Jen.
I think
we dig deep.
Yeah, we've learned one thing today as well. Mike knows everything about everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's the digital age. I should have known.
I won't let out any of your secrets, Jen. Don't worry.
Oh, thank you.
Mike is Google.
Luckily, I don't have too many skeletons in the closet.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay, here. Alright, this is a little fun question I'm pulling out here, number 20. What are your favorite types of dinosaurs and animals to draw? What are some animals you'd like to draw but you haven't got around to doing? And then furthermore, what would you say would be the most difficult, type of animals to, draw for whatever reason, for whatever, like scales or whatnot?
Well, like I said, I really like working from life. Part of the reason I got interested in paleo art was because you can't work from life, really. You have to, but there's a lot of, it just was such a challenge. And I have to say that the learning curve has been really sharp for me. I don't think that, you know, I think I started out with some rough illustrations, and I continue to really want to get better and look at other artists in this and other fields to inform ways of improving my work. I think that, so in that way, I would say anything extinct, that's challenging. And when you're working with scientists, that's also challenging because you've got all these competing opinions about, do I add feathers? Do I do scales? And, or do I do a mix? And then, you know, and then you go with a direction and other people don't like it. And so, it's kind of an interesting to kind of sit down and have all your decisions, you know they're going to be scrutinized no matter what. As far as animals that I would like to work on, or that well, I guess I just haven't given that too much. I've got so many projects on my desk right now that I kind of rarely look ahead at things that I want to do. I've always got my head down on what you know, the huge load of things on my desk. But I'd say that I would love to probably do more with theropod dinosaurs, looking at feathers, looking at smaller species, looking at enantiornithines, looking at what happened at that boundary, you know, and that kind of ties into a lot of stuff that's really hot in paleontology right now. So yeah, I think that definitely working on kind of small feathered things. I love birds. I love bird watching. One of the perks of living in Montana is that I get to see a lot more of them and a lot more interesting ones. I can't, you know, drive to Baker without seeing a few bald eagles. Every once in a while, a golden eagle, which is pretty cool. So I would say, yeah, more feathered stuff.
More feathers, eh? And you mentioned interest in bird watching. That actually reminds me of Paleoartist Emily Willoughby, who also has a very strong, you know, interest in, you know, ornithology, you know, bird watching.
She is so good. I mean, I love her illustrations. I love kind of looking at all the details that she puts in there. She had that one with the spider web, and I mean, there's just an elegance to her work that I think is really inspiring. And yeah, and she does a lot of beautiful feathered stuff.
I can't think of anyone else who really does feathered, you know, dromaeosaurs as well as she does, just going from all the ones I've seen.
Yeah.
And she's someone I'll try to get on here someday to talk, you know, feathered dinosaurs and talk more about dromaeosaurs, because I think those are some of the most fascinating, you know, families of theropod dinosaurs. Ever since Jurassic Park really introduced them to the masses.
Yeah, well, and that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, she's really good. I don't know her personally, but I have admired her work for a long time. And she's great because she's also got the PhD, so she's got this really well-rounded, you know, skill set, which is no doubt part of what makes her work so robust.
Indeed. So some of the best artists have additional, you know, skill sets. Like some of them actually double as paleontologists themselves, like, you know, Julius Chittini and Jason Poole, whom was interviewed on Prehistoric Beasts of the Week by Chris DiPiazza very recently.
Oh, you talked to Jason?
I haven't spoken to him, but one of my guests last week actually interviewed him for his website, Prehistoric Beasts of the Week.
Oh, cool. Yeah, Jason's great. He's in Philadelphia, and yeah, another person I love bumping into whenever he makes it to SVP.
So let me see here. I'll pull up another good random question here. All right, question number 17 here. Where are all the places that people can actually see your artwork in person?
In person? Okay, that's a good question. So definitely here at the Carter County Museum. That's where a lot of artwork here on the walls, posters in the gift shop, on the clothing. It's a lot of Jenn Hall. And the other thing is we do have other artists that we work with, quite a few. We had artist in residence named Zan Peters last summer, and so we've got a lot of his artwork here as well, and a few other Paleoartists. You can see my work at Dinosaur National Monument in person. You can buy the History Channel's book, Mankind, the Story of All of Us. you can go to Florida, the Marco Island Historical Society. I actually haven't been to that location. The nice thing about the digital age is that I can do a lot of stuff from my desk and then just send it to the state it needs to go to. Where else? Oh, I'm drawing a blank, but I'm sure I'll think of more. Yeah, those would be the top ones.
All right, that's very awesome. I'll go to question number 9 here. How often have you been sought out by paleontologists to provide artwork for their scientific papers and publications? And has your work been featured in say, TV outside of, Human, The Story of Us, magazines, or popular books, for that matter?
I don't think so. I mean, Dreadnoughtus was on TV when it came out, but it was, not like featured in like a National Geographic special or anything like that. So yeah, I've been contacted for science illustration for researchers a handful of times. It's not really something that I advertise that I do. It's mostly word of mouth. So in that respect, I guess, the handful of times that I've been, maybe once a year since I graduated. And I would definitely like to do more. I get contacted for graphic design stuff so much more frequently. I'm actually thinking, if you want to see my work, it's not up yet, but it will be at the Santa Barbara Natural History Museum, is redoing their mammal hall, and I did a lot of illustrations for that, so you'll be able to see that when it is done, which I'm not sure when they're slated to be done with that redesign, but that's and I can't put the work up on my website until that happens, but go see it at the museum.
That brings me to another good question. How many oftentimes have you been asked to do depictions of, like, say, prehistoric mammals as opposed to, like, dinosaurs?
Honestly, probably more mammals than dinosaurs. Or I should say mammals and non-dinosaurian reptiles and amphibians. Dinosaurs are really sexy to be commissioned to do, but there's a lot more to paleontology and the illustration needs of paleontologists who are working on things other than dinosaurs. I did some, I think I sent you some work I did for a guy named Michael Tuma, who was who's now Dr. Tuma, and his thesis was on that species of tortoise. So that's an illustration that I really had a lot of fun working on. That was not dinosaurs.
That's very cool. And as the saying goes, there's a lot more to paleontology than just dinosaurs. I mean, the retroblader tar pits. All the animals that have been found there are animals that are found only in places outside of North America nowadays.
Yeah. No, the tar pits are cool, and yeah, a lot of animals coming out of that. I mean, if you want to talk about animals that maybe someday I would like to work on, saber-toothed cat would be awesome. Something like that. Nimravids are cool.
Prehistoric fields are some of the animals that I'm actually very fascinated by, on top of dinosaurs, because I'm a very big cat person. Love going out to the zoo and photographing tigers and other sort of large cats. And I just think 100,000 years ago we actually had cats here in North America that were way larger than any modern cats. Panthera atrox, the American lion. That's a cat that I would really love to see up close in person.
Yeah. Well, and as far as taxidermy goes, I do have aspirations to do reconstructions of some of these extinct species using taxidermy methods. So that's kind of, again, aspirations when I'm done with my graduate work.
And one cat type that most people probably haven't heard of is an animal that's been dubbed the American cheetah, Meracinix trumani. It's a very interesting cat that most people I don't think know about, but really should know more about.
Is that that went extinct about 11,000 years ago? Is that right?
Yeah, it's around the same time as the other megafauna, 10 to 11,000 years ago.
I think, yeah, and that one, like you said, the American cheetah. I was just doing some research on pronghorns, and they think that animal is the reason that pronghorns evolved their incredible speed.
That's quite correct. I've actually seen that study. I mean, that was the only animal that was fast enough to catch pronghorns. I mean, there's nothing alive today that can actually full out catch a pronghorn at top speed, but these American cheetahs, they could do so.
Yeah, no, I've seen pronghorns on the prairie, and they are fast. They are very fast.
Not just fast, but they also have very high endurance as well.
Mm-hmm.
The same goes for modern animals. You know, if a cheetah fails to catch an antelope within like the first 30 or 60 seconds, it's going to just tire out. It's built to go super fast, but not be able to sustain the chase for very long.
Yeah.
So that answers that. Okay. Question number 8 about references. What do you use for references in your illustrations? Is it examining modern animals as a reference, skeletals, consultation with paleontologists, other artists, or even consulting previous works of paleo art as reference material?
Definitely all of the above. I think that it's, the first thing is just to kind of look at the fossil, look at the skeleton, look at what you've got, look at what you know for sure, and then kind of build from there. Looking at, birds, super helpful. Taxidermy has been huge in helping me have a more intuitive understanding of anatomy, especially theropod anatomy. So, for me, a lot of the time, actually dissecting an animal is incredibly helpful. To just kind of see where those connections are happening, what the muscle is doing. And then, yeah, definitely consulting with the scientists is pretty paramount to the whole thing. I mean, they really do know best, and my whole job is making sure that what is in their head is getting out onto the screen or the paper or whatever it is. So yeah, consulting with paleontologists, talking with my Paleoartist colleagues, talking with, curators and things like that, really just getting a very robust understanding of what you're dealing with.
Paleontologist Robert Bacher said that when people ask him, how do I get into paleontology, what classes should I take? And he said always biology and anatomy before anything else. And yeah. You've got all that in your head, and it would be cool if, like, instead of doing like a 2D taper, you could actually use your taxidermy and do with, like Gary Saab does, a 3D taper for the guys, Yeah.
Well, and that is kind of once my schedule kind of
I know.
down, and we're doing a huge expansion here at the museum where we are going to want to have something. Some reconstructions that will involve taxidermy and extinct specimens. So, but that's in its nascent stages of development. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'm interested in. I did actually bring, I did a reconstruction of a microraptor using starling and peacock feathers and skins a few years ago.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was fun. I took it to the taxidermy championships, and I got a second place ribbon, which was fun, in the novice division, but still, that was exciting. And I took it apart because I think I can put it back to, it's such a learning experience, all of these things, and especially once you do something once, you're going to get better the second time. So it's definitely something I want to do more of.
What's the largest animal you've ever done? Two-headed calf?
I wish that was my work. I'm just repairing that one.
Yeah.
Large, probably. Well, I've mounted deer head. That's big. Generally bigger than I like to work in my limited amount of space. Probably a bobcat.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Or a lynx. Big
right.
cat.
I used to have a pet cat, and one day we saw him up on the hill behind our house. He had gone face to face with a bobcat and just froze. So we scared away the bobcat, but as we picked up my pet cat, his legs were like straight out, like he was frozen still. You know?
Yeah, I have a pet cat that spends some time outdoors, and I do worry about the bobcats around here, but
Yeah.
she's pretty savvy. I don't worry too much.
Yeah. That was pretty funny though.
I think I'll pull up question number 13 here about field work and how's your field work helped you with your scientific illustrations?
Well, that's a good question. When you see something in the field and you're not sure what it is, there's kind of, your mind is kind of racing, trying to solve the puzzle. And in that way, it's kind of probably helped me just kind of become a little bit more boned up on my anatomy. You know, definitely, I would say that what field work does for me more than anything else is gets me in touch with nature. It gets me in a headspace that is inspiring, and you know, it's really important to kind of go out and daydream about these extinct animals, these extinct environments. So in that way, field work, more than anything, I just find it inspiring and really an important part of being engaged with the content and getting out of the office.
Yeah, our guest this past Monday, Tyler Keeler, he's also the he's Paul Serrano's chief lab manager, and that gives him an extra edge when it comes to designing his sculpts, because he actually has the fossil material to directly help him with his construction of his sculpts.
Yeah, and you know, we're very lucky. We have a lot of, I mean, I have access to our collections anytime I need it, and you know, we're a federal repository, so if I do need to look at something up close, I can do that quite easily. But again, for me, the fieldwork aspect is just about, and it's also, it's good team building. It's really good to get out there with your colleagues and just kind of share a love of fieldwork. It's kind of its own beast, and it's part of why the first time I went out in the field, I just kind of fell in love right away.
Which leads me to my previous question here, question number 11, that asks, how often do you go out in the field and participate in excavations or other hands-on research with, you know, paleontologists and their staff?
Yeah, well, definitely a lot more since moving to Montana. I was going out every summer prior. I was doing a lot of field work in New Mexico with the LA County Natural History Museum. That's kind of where I got started doing field work in the West. My original field work that I did was actually at the Ember Sand Pit, which is now the Edelman Fossil Park in Mantua Township in New Jersey, in southern New Jersey. And that's a really interesting, it's an interesting place to do field work. It's kind of unlike anything else that I've experienced. But now here at the museum, field work sometimes falls into my job description. Sometimes it doesn't. I have, you know, people get to go out to the field and I have to hang back and do some office thing and be very jealous. But yeah, I get to go out pretty regularly during the summer. I mean, I live in the Hell Creek now, so I can theoretically just go out any old time and prospect. You know, the permitting that you need to be doing field work out here on BLM land is pretty extensive, and we do need our curator here for that. But we also have some really generous local ranchers who allow us to go on their land, which is private land. So I get to go hiking quite a bit during the summer.
That's very, very awesome. Are there any places that you would like to go out and excavate but haven't had the opportunity to? And regarding digs you've already been on, what was the most exciting one to go on, and also the most treacherous work site you've ever been at?
Okay, that's a good question. So, as far as places I'd love to do field work, I mean, anywhere and everywhere. I've heard Egg Mountain is a good place to go, and unfortunately, there is a plan to do that this summer, but I'll be in London. Woohoo. But yeah, I would love to do field work in China. That sounds totally different and really fun. I would love to do one of those Patagonian expeditions. Yeah, anywhere kind of different and remote sounds kind of intriguing to me. The most treacherous, I don't know that I've ever been on a treacherous dig. You know, definitely there's always an element of, you know, you have to be aware of safety and surroundings. You know, rattlesnakes, or, you know, they'll pop out at you every once in a while, and you know, just making sure you wear enough sunscreen. I would say the sun is probably the most dangerous part of any of the field work I've done. And then the most exciting field work, oh gosh, it's all exciting. I don't know if I can name one particular dig.
Yeah, some of the people at the Cleveland Museum actually were in China not that long ago excavating fossils up there. There's actually a write-up of it in the latest issue of the Cleveland Museum's magazine. It definitely is quite interesting from what I've read. They mentioned a problem that's been occurring over there, and that is the problem of fossil poaching.
Yeah, fossil poaching is a real thing, not just in China, but everywhere. The money that fossils can get creates an industry that is really not amazing, to say the least. And yeah, I have heard about fossil poaching in China, and it's very unfortunate.
Indeed. Now, if I could make one more follow-up to this, what would be your absolute, dream specimen to work on, or what would you want to find above all else that could be very significant, to paleontology?
I would love to find a sauropod in the Hell Creek. I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be the dream.
Well, for me personally, finding a mummified tyrannosaur, that would be one of the big holy grails of paleontology, because it could potentially answer one of the most hotly debated topics was Tyrannosaurus Rex feathered or not? The latest, Carr et al. Paper from 2017, that raised quite a bit of, controversy for some people, but after listening to what Dr. Carr had to say about it, I actually, for the most part, do agree with his assessments, even though some headlines at the time were running with rather clickbaity nonsense, like, oh, T-Rex was 100% scaly, even though, oh, crap. Oh, heck.
Internet must or something.
Oh, sorry about that. The recording's still happening. Skype crashed on my end so bad. So sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
Yeah, I was just saying a mummified anything would be great.
Yeah. I mean, as far as preserved animals go, one of the most significant recent discoveries was in Yakutia in the Russian Republic of 2 cave lion cubs that were found preserved in the permafrost.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That is right, yeah. That's cool. I would love to go see that up and close, and yeah. But concerning feathers and scales and T-Rex, definitely working with birds and working with their skin and looking at the feather patterns. I think it was probably a combination of things, but I'm far from an expert, so take that for what it's worth.
Thomas Carr told us no.
He did acknowledge that not everybody in the paleontological community agrees with him, so he wasn't saying his opinion was the best, but he's definitely on the scale side for sure. So yeah, I think the battle rages on.
It does, and I think we'll we'll get some answers probably. I think that there's still good discoveries to be made that'll tell us, and it's good to kind of be humble in the meantime.
Yeah. But according to the Carr et al. Paper, the evidence does seem to lean towards more scales than feathers. But the paper's authors did not rule out that they may have had some feather integument.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think a good compromise to a feathered scaly T-Rex combination is the design for the Tyrannosaurs in the novel Primitive War. They have a mane and crest of feathers on part of their body, but they're not entirely feathered.
Yeah, well, a combination makes sense to me, but again, I'm not an expert, so.
I think Chris Peckham, for his BBC documentary, did something similar. Just gave it kind of a, I suppose, not too bushy, but a bit of a mane. But he did acknowledge that he kind of was taking a bit of creative license there, so he's not sure either way. But I suppose that's probably the best way to be. I suppose I don't need to tell you, you're the artist. You know, you know more than me about it. But I suppose with ancient creatures, I guess we just have to kind of make our best guesses, and then maybe, let our imaginations do the rest.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I mean, as long as you're adhering to the science as strongly as you can, there's no reason not to have fun with it as well.
Jen, sorry if you already answered this, but did you touch brush to canvas with your Lucy and Dreadnoughtus? Are you all digital or combination, or
it's a combination?
Yeah.
Yeah, I start with a pencil sketch, and I think I did send it to Greg. Those tortoises that I worked on, I did a pretty fleshed out pencil sketch first. Then I scanned that into the computer, and then for the painting, I work digitally for a lot of reasons. One, it's just I can do that. I can work on that painting wherever I am. And I do travel quite a bit, so having the mobility is a huge thing. But also, that's kind of the most appropriate medium for paleo art, because you're able to achieve a higher sense of realism, in my opinion. But I do think that it has to start, for me personally, with the artistry of working in the sketchbook.
Yeah, I'm very old school, but even I, touch it up with the computer after I finish drawing it and everything.
Yeah,
it's just so nice to be able to do that.
It's very nice, and really, I think that when it comes to paleo art and communicating visually scientific ideas, it's really not about the process; it's about the end result, which seems really backwards when you're talking about art. It should always be about the journey, but in this case, you really, there's a goal here. It's not who can do this the best. It's we need to communicate something. So.
Right. Yes, Stephen King used to get mad when people ask him, what kind of word processor do you use to write your book? He goes, what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah. Do you like the book?
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, please keep Prehistoric Times Magazine in mind if you have any artwork you'd like to share with the world, because we would love to show some of your artwork in the magazine.
Well, great. Thank you very much. I'm not great at documenting or reaching out. Like I said, I kind of hermit up and do my thing, and then send a job out the door, and that's the last. I forget about it. So I try to make more of an effort.
Yeah, move on.
Yeah, but I'll try to send something in.
Sounds good.
That kind of might have answered my fifth question here, but if you want to go into more detail, I'll ask anyway. What is your preferred medium to work with? Are there any mediums you'd like to try to make art with, but you just haven't had the time to do because of either difficulty, challenge, or just simple lack of downtime to try to do a new way of creating artwork?
Well, definitely, if you look at my artistic background, I'm not afraid of new mediums. In fact, once I've kind of feel like I've gotten a good grasp on it, I feel like it's time to move on to another medium. That said, my old standby is always going to be graphite on paper. I love sitting down and sketching what's in front of me. I love working from animals at the zoo, or plant life in the field, or just kind of sketch out of my head. And so I think, just touching pencil to paper for me is kind of spiritual thing. It's kind of where it all goes back to. But I love working with Photoshop too. I love working with the taxidermied animals. I as long as I could be using my hands and trying to kind of figure out visual puzzles, I'm pretty happy. As far as mediums that I would like to try, well, ceramics does sound fun. Like I said, it's been a long time since I even kind of dabbled in that. I took a few foundry classes when I was an undergrad, and that was really fun. I really liked working with the bronze. So yeah, I mean, definitely I'll always be looking for a new medium to try and something new to master.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about being friends with my artists. There's just so many different styles of art, and I appreciate each and every form of art style. Chris Piazza's watercolors, they're absolutely gorgeous. Doug Henderson's work, as you mentioned, that stuff just has a surreal, abstract, quality to it. When he's not just doing prehistoric animals, even just regular, backgrounds that he does, they're just, I don't have a word to really, describe it.
He's got a real classical feel to him. He's an artist.
Indeed, and some of them have an extra touch to them, probably you might know of Julius Chittany from Canada. Yeah,
he's got a great distinct style, and he's definitely an artist. When I look, when I look to the future and improving my own work, he's definitely an inspiration.
He's one of three that I've actually had the privilege of meeting personally. The other one being Mark Schultz, and the other one just last year, Danielle Defoe.
Yeah, there's so many great artists out there that are kind of developing their own style, their own voice, and doing really good science communication with that.
Leads me to an interesting question. Have you ever thought about, maybe starting a YouTube channel or sorts to document to showcase your artwork, discuss the museum, or just, do something fun like, Danielle does with her show Animal Logic, for example?
I haven't. I'm not super comfortable with being on TV a lot or anything like that. No. I would love for us to have, maybe a podcast at the museum here, showcase some of the work that's being done here, but something that I host, no. You got the market cornered, and that's okay. I'm shy.
Actually, in terms of video content, I was looking around your site. You did that really cool little stop motion video, the Dynamite Valentine's thing. That was really nifty. Is that something you're looking to explore more, like moving into some more stop motion work, or is that just a once off?
Yeah, maybe when I have some more free time, that would be a cool thing to look into. I think animation that's kind of intimidating for me, and it's not something that I've done a whole lot of. I've done some very simple animations, but yeah, that could be a fun thing. I mean, Instagram makes it so easy that that was just me kind of playing around with some fun stuff. And again, most of my communication and self-promotion is through Instagram. It's the most bang for the least amount of effort, and I do like sharing my work, but I definitely don't have a lot of time to be on the computer with a YouTube channel or anything like that, unfortunately.
Well, if you ever do gain the confidence to do it, YouTube's a great way to have your work reached out to. And that's where I post my episodes and my other assorted content, and that leads to a question I have here in the sidebar. How many different museums have you visited throughout your career? Are there any that you would like to visit someday?
Any different museums that I would... how many museums have I visited in my paleontological career?
Or just in life in general?
Oh gosh, infinite. I mean, again, I grew up in DC where they're free. I remember moving to Philadelphia and being shocked that I had to pay like $20 to go to the zoo. So, I mean, probably dozens of museums, dozens and dozens of museums, and museums of all sorts. And, you know, I've done some international travel, so I've gotten to go to museums in other countries. And then again, I'll be in London this summer for a couple of weeks doing a seminar where I'll be visiting a lot of museums, and I'm very excited about that.
That's very, very cool. As I said, I frequently go to the Cleveland Museum in Ohio. Been going there since I was a child. And some of the other museums that I have gone to include the University of Michigan Museum of Natural History of Ann Arbor. It's getting renovated and relocated, which will be opening circa 2019. The furthest one I've traveled to the east is the Carnegie in Pittsburgh. Absolutely love that museum. It's the museum where the holotype Tyrannosaurus is on display, among many other impressive specimens. There's also the Field Museum, which a lot of us have visited. I've also been up as far north as Kenosha to Dr. Carr's museum, the Dinosaur Discovery Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And in Indianapolis, the Indiana State Museum, which is an absolute mecca for those who want to go see Ice Age mammal fossils in the Midwest.
Yeah, there's so many great museums out there, and I think I'll just put in a bit again. Anytime you have an opportunity to go to a small museum, they are full of unexpected educational opportunities and surprises. Small museums are really frequently little diamonds in the rough. So the big ones are, I mean, no doubt, they're great. But I love going to a good small museum.
And one in Kenosha fits the small bill absolutely to a T. There's one large room, and it's like a rotunda-style room. And in there is a very large collection of theropod dinosaurs, the largest collection of any such in the United States and possibly the world.
Yeah.
Some of the creatures on display at the Dinosaur Discovery Museum include some very obscure ones like Carnotaurus, Acrocanthosaurus, Torvosaurus, Suchomimus. There's a cast of Stan. There's some pretty unique animals here that usually aren't going to be found at most museums in the United States. So, yep. And it's also, again, where Dr. Carr does a lot of his work in the laboratory there. Definitely check it out if you're up in Wisconsin for anything.
I have a question for Jen, if I might.
All right, go ahead, Mike.
People are going to say, Mike, we don't care about this, but great way to preface my question, I know. But Jen, my wife and her side of our family, her mother, her sister, are all great bakers and decorate these beautiful wedding cakes for friends and birthday cakes for family and stuff. You were doing that professionally, huh? And I think it speaks to your artwork now, you know. How did that, was your mother, you know, big on that? Or how did that start, and what all did you do?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, when I was a senior in high school, my mom did actually like to do decorative cakes, now that I think about it. But I was a senior in high school, and she said that she had been to this cookie store. I don't know if you've ever seen like those arrangements of cookies that look like stuff. Instead of getting a bouquet of flowers, you get cookies that look like stuff. For, you know, a get well or a graduation thing. And there was a cookie store called Bundles of Cookies that had recently been on the Today Show. And so she said, wow. I think they probably got, you know, this new exposure is good for them. You know, you should go and apply. So I did. And my boss hired me on the spot, and I worked there for a few years decorating cookies. And yeah, I loved that job. That was, I mean, sometimes I look back and I can't believe that I had that job when I was a senior in high school. That was such a fun job. It really taught me a lot about work ethic. It taught me a lot about, customer service and, you know, being part of a team, working in a small business. I really, if you can't tell, I like small businesses and small institutions. And then, I did the college thing, and then towards the end of college, I kind of knew somebody through somebody who was opening up a bakery called Whipped Bake Shop in Philadelphia, and she was kind of an artist turned pastry artist, and I was really inspired by her work, and I worked at Whip for 4 years, doing all sorts of things: wedding cakes, cookies, cakes, decorations, all sorts of stuff. I mean, just some of the sculpted cakes, and it was an awesome opportunity to just kind of get a sense of design and eat a lot of sweets. And again, some of the things, I'm not much of a colorist, but Zoe, my boss at Whip, she's got this amazing sense of color, and I really learned a lot about color when I was working there. I think
people appreciate how artistic that work is. It's not just.
Oh yeah, and I still try to incorporate it into my life from time to time. We have a sister museum in Kumamoto, Japan, and we had some of them. Yeah, they came and visited the Carter County Museum last year. So as like little gifts, I did some decorated dinosaur skeleton cookies, and you can see those on my Instagram.
Candy said within a week she did not want any candy.
Yeah. I don't think anybody would accuse me of having a sweet tooth just because I had so many sweets. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry about that again, guys. Skype crashed on me for a second time during the recording. So if you
didn't even miss you, Greg.
So, you want to give us a quick little recap of what I perhaps missed?
Well, I'm not sure where you got off there, but I was just saying that there's a lot that I learned in my pastry career about art and design that has, not only was it delicious, and then, but now I get to use those skills from time to time, and I do still like to bake quite a bit and do decorated cookies and things like that.
Yeah.
It's,
nice.
Cool. Speaking of something, I'll jump into my number 2 question here. In addition to a Paleoart, what got you interested in doing graphic art design and taxidermy?
Oh, it was really mostly just... so when I moved to Los Angeles, I signed up to do a taxidermy class at Prey Taxidermy, which is how I kind of got involved with that. I wasn't really sure how that was going to factor in. I knew that it would help me with my art and giving me a better understanding of anatomy, but it just, it's kind of experienced a renaissance in the last few years, and I thought that was pretty interesting and wanted to see what it was about. And then, Alice Markham, who owns Prey Taxidermy, she and I worked together for a few years, and I learned so much from her, and we also did some really fun traveling, and that was just like a really educational time. And then, picking up the odd commission here and there and building a portfolio, teaching classes, stuff like that. That's how I got into that. And then graphic design-wise, again, the demand for graphic design is pretty high. It's probably what I do the most of these days is graphic design. I just kind of kept my ear to the ground for things that people needed, and I started off slow. Ken asked me to do a few things after Dreadnoughtus for t-shirts for their dig days, and the t-shirt company that was printing those was impressed, so now I work for them. doing different kinds of T-shirt designs, and so I have a lot of freelance stuff, and then from those T-shirt designs, the museum here said, well, we want T-shirt designs, and I said I want to do T-shirt designs that are dinosaur related. So it all kind of just evolved over time.
Okay, and when it comes to your work, do you draw whatever you want, or has all your work been commission-based, like from organizations and people, like museums or institutions, for example?
Most of my work is commission-based. I don't do a whole lot of... In other words, I don't kind of sit down and do something and hope somebody will want to buy it, generally. It's more... Somebody comes to me with an idea, and I say, yeah, I think I can do that for you.
That sounds like some of the artists that I know, including my friend Rochelle, who I've commissioned 3 times for work. She's a Dragon of Doom on DeviantArt.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not on DeviantArt, but I've seen a lot of really solid work come out of there that's made me think I should be, but again, and all the accounts that you have to keep track of, I'm barely on Facebook because I can't keep up with all of it.
Yeah, some of the stuff I've seen on there has been really good, and some of it really hasn't been so good. But that's for another time. I'll leave this let us segue to question number 4 about inspirations. Did you have any artists that inspired you growing up, and are there any today that currently inspire you with their work as you create your own? And do you have any favorite paleo artists?
Well, like I said, yeah, so inspiration-wise, I like a lot of modern art. I like a lot of the ideas and the theory behind modern art. So when I think about work that needs to be made, I think that artwork has to be purpose-driven. And I like that modern art usually has some sort of message that it's trying to deliver. So artists, and I really like outsider art. So so I think that a lot of my inspiration comes from atypical sources. As far as my favorite paleo artists go, I think a lot of the ones we've already talked about. Definitely Bill Stout, I think, has a great, unique style and voice. Emily Willoughby, just exquisite, elegant work. Julius, really prolific and just his work has a presence that I'm not sure I have an adjective for, but walking up to one of his murals, you feel like you're really in the presence of that animal, and that's really cool. Yeah, so but honestly, the best inspiration is going out into the field, or going for a hike, or looking at a bird, or opening up a bird if you can, if you're like me. I get a lot of inspiration from the natural world.
I love to break out my phone and take pictures out in the wild, and it's good for backgrounds, especially,
Yeah, absolutely, making sure that, yeah, you're really drawing from life to do these life reconstructions.
Jen, how close is Oregon? Is it Idaho in the way?
No.
You didn't think there'd be geography today, did you? Mark Hallett, I know you know Mark Hallett's name. He's in Oregon. He's pretty close to you, too, if you ever need any artists to...
Oregon's a bit of a trek.
Okay.
A couple days. Yeah. Even actually to get to the other side of... So I'm in super southeast Montana. To get to the west side is like a 11, 12-hour drive.
Wow.
Yeah, Montana's a huge state.
Yeah. Not as big as California, but okay.
That's okay.
Hey, guys, you can drive the entire length of my country in 3 hours. These distances you guys are talking about just boggle my mind.
Yeah, well.
And of course, Ohio, you can go from the west side all the way across the east in like 3 or 4 hours, as I can attest to. I haven't traveled as far east as Pittsburgh.
Well, sunny California's getting a lot of rain today. I muted the mic. It was pouring so loud here a minute ago.
Yeah, California was always sunny, and I actually have to say I'm not a California girl. I really like my precipitation, so it's nice to be here in Montana when we do get precipitation. But we have been getting a lot of snow, and I definitely have a little cabin fever. I'd like to be hiking now.
Yeah, I didn't even like snow as a kid for more than a day. You know, it gets pretty old pretty quick.
So you get a snow day.
Well, yeah, I like that.
For me, it seems the older I get, the less tolerant I become of winter.
I think that's how it goes.
Yeah, cranky old man.
We all get cranky the older we get.
Yeah, Ohio there's a running joke in Ohio that we're the one state that gets all the seasons all in one span of a week sometimes.
Yes, I have experienced that in Ohio.
Can I ask one last question? I think that'll be kind of it for me.
Yeah, in fact, I have to open the museum.
I figured you probably were getting close on time.
Yeah, we're good. I was going to say I'm happy to talk longer, but I do have to open the museum at 1 o'clock. But yeah, let's do one more question.
Okay, just that a lot of people were asking Greg, how come you only interview male artists, paleontologists, whatever. So we wanted to start getting some female people to interview. And he asked me who I knew, and I didn't know you, but I found you on the internet, and I thought you were having such an amazing resume that I thought we should talk to you. But this seems to be kind of the year of the woman, and kind of in a bad way, because a lot of women are speaking up for the terrible things that have happened to them, of course. But we've asked other women, has being a woman affected you in a negative way? I mean, do you ever feel like you're, not getting the things you should get or whatever? I mean, like I say, your resume is so incredible. It looks like you've done pretty darn well for yourself.
Yeah, that's, I've been asked that question before.
Sure.
And what I would say is I've been incredibly lucky. From Bob and Tess to the Carter County Museum and everything in between. Anybody that's wanted to work with me and given me a shot and help me. I mean, I would say that I don't know. My resume certainly isn't as extensive as a lot of the women, my female counterparts. Definitely, I'd say I'm in the beginning of my career and have a lot of growing to do. I think as far as being a woman in this field, and do I feel disadvantaged? I guess you don't know what you don't know. If I was a guy, would I be ahead? Maybe, maybe not. But I consider myself extremely lucky. I consider myself fortunate to be able to do what I do every day and make a living doing it. And I love representing women when I can. I think that, it's the question will continue to be part of the discussion for some time to come, but we are seeing a lot more women come into STEM and STEAM education, and I think maybe we're going to have, a turning of the tide. But no, I've never really felt overtly discriminated against, and I don't have any kind of bitterness about being a woman in this field. I think it's a good time to be a woman in this field.
Yeah. No, I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah. and I love that people want to highlight women in this field. And certainly, again, I kind of feel a little unworthy because I'm so early in my career and I have so much to learn. But I also, you got to, get out there and take the chance. So
yeah,
that's what every job's about. And yeah, I'm very, very lucky. I don't think that if you had asked me 10 years ago, would I, be making a living doing museum work and hanging out with paleontologists and getting to study fossils and do this amazing, what I consider important work that makes me feel like there's something really important happening. I'm involved in a discussion that's relevant. That's a great gift.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but someone, when asked, how did you get so far in life, he says, you just show up. And that's kind of what you just said.
Yeah, just show up and, be willing to fail forward.
Right.
Definitely every job I do, I look at it and I think, I wish I had another shot, but you don't. The next shot is the next job. And so, you get better as you go, and you don't let, the roadblocks and the failure, quote unquote failures, you let them be lessons and you grow.
Oh, yeah. No, we've all got regrets, but you just got to move on.
Yeah. That's life.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, great. Thank you guys so much. This was really really fun conversation.
Yeah.
Good to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for giving us the time. It was really interesting.
Oh, I hope so. I hope, if nothing else, it's entertaining. But yeah, good luck with the podcast. I can't wait to listen to all these guests that you guys are about to have on, and probably won't listen to my own episode because you know how that goes, the sound of your own voice.
Well, I will be sure to send you the links to any of the new ones that we have coming up, and I'll be absolutely sure to have yours up on YouTube as soon as possible. And as the showrunner, I'd like to say it was an honor to have you on the show, Ms. Hall, and I'd be happy to have you back on if you have anything new you would like to share with us regarding artwork or even anything new pertaining to your museum, because I would love to go out there someday and check it out.
You should come out for the Dino Shindig last weekend of July.
Last weekend of July. That's when my birthday. That's around the time of my birthday.
Perfect time to celebrate. Perfect place to celebrate.
Yeah, it's time this Traveler's Guide started doing some traveling.
There you go. Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm turning 30 this year, so.
You're only a baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
1 foot in the grave.
Well, it's an open invitation to all of you. Would love to give you a tour of the museum if you ever make it out to Ekalaka.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Thanks again so much. This was great.
You're
Take
welcome.
care.
You're welcome,
Okay.
Jennifer, and we will happily welcome you back on anytime. The door is open.
Okay, sounds good.
And I'll do the outro. Okay, everyone, this has been Prehistory: A Traveler's Guide. This has been your host, Greg, signing off.